Hello everyone. In our previous videos we have studied about the reproduction in organism. Let's start with a new chapter, sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Reproduction ensures the continuity of species generation after generation as older organisms undergo senescence and die. This is the life story of all sexually reproducing organisms. Sexual reproduction is a process in which a new organism is formed by two parents where the haploid male gamete fuses with the haploid female gamete to give rise to the diploid zygote. In flowering plants such as Angiosperms, there are complex reproductive structures along with the accessory structures. Sexual method of reproduction is a mode of reproduction in Angiosperms. In some plants, a special mode of reproduction takes place such as parthenogenesis, sporophytic budding, apomixis, polyembryony, apogamy, apospory and micropropagation. Keeping aside all these methods, let's focus on sexual mode of reproduction in flowering plants. Flowers are more than pretty things which are responsible for sexual reproduction in plant, which is highly essential. Do you know the largest flower? Rafflesia arnoldi is the largest flower which weighs about 15 pounds. The smallest flower is Ulfia, which is small as the grain of rice. Let's study about the floral whorls. Whorls are nothing but the arrangement of floral parts such as sepals, petals, stamen and pistil. Floral whorls are of two types, outer accessory whorl and the inner essential whorl. The outer accessory whorls does not have any role in the reproduction. They are calyx and the corolla. Inner essential whorls play a very important role in reproduction. They are stamen and pistil. Let's study about the outer accessory whorls, that is the calyx and the corolla. We have a receptacle at the base of the flower which is attached to the stalk. Above the receptacle we have the sepals. Sepals are leaf-like structures and the group of sepals are called as calyx. The main role of this sepals is to protect the flower when it is in the bud stage. Above the sepals we have the petals. The petals are brightly colored and the main role of these petals is to attract the pollinators such as the birds and insects, which helps in the pollination. Inner essential walls are the reproductive units of a flower, which are stamen and pistil. First, let's see about stamen. There are two important parts in stamen. One is the filament, the other one is the anther. The stamen consists of the filament. The filament is a long slender tube to which anther is attached. Anther is bilobed in some plants and it is a single lobe in some plants. This anther consists of pollen grains, which are the important male gamete which helps in reproduction. Next, coming for pistil. Pistil are the female reproductive units, and these pistils consist of three important parts: the stigma, style and the ovary. The stigma is the topmost part of the pistil to which the pollen gets attached with the help of the pollinators. Once the pollen gets attached to the stigma, it should enter through the style. The style is again a slender tube. Once the pollen gets attached to the stigma, the style becomes a hollow tube called as the pollen tube, and where the pollen reaches the ovary. The ovary is the basal part of the pistil, which consists of ovule. Once the pollen enters into the ovary, it fuses with the ovule to give rise to the fruit, where the ovule forms the seed of the fruit. We have a statement, flower is a modified shoot. We know that an ordinary shoot is an axial stem with multiple nodes and internodes. We have a shoot. In a shoot, at the top we have the meristematic tissue, which is called as the apical meristem. From the apical meristem there arise the female reproductive unit, that is the gynoecium. But in the successive nodes we have stamen, corolla and calyx. When we condense this shoot system, we get the shoot gets condensed into the thalamus, that is the receptacle. From the receptacle there arise the female reproductive unit. The successive nodes are present on the receptacles, which gives rise to stamen, the male reproductive unit, the calyx and the corolla. Let's see the dissection of hibiscus flower. Here you can see the thalamus, which is otherwise called as the receptacle. Here we have the sepals, which play a very important role in the bud stage of the flower. We have the brightly colored corolla, which attracts the pollinators such as insects and birds. Here we have the male reproductive unit. We can see the anthers attached to the filament. We have the style inside along with stigma, and here we do have the ovary. Let's dissect the flower and see. First, let's remove the receptacles. Next, let's remove the calyx. Let's remove the corolla. Let's see the female reproductive unit. Here you can see the female reproductive unit. This is the ovary, this is the style, this is the stigma. To this stigma, the pollen grains get attached with the help of the pollinators, and once there is a favorable pollination, there is a formation of the hollow pollen tube. The pollen enters into the stigma, into the ovary, where it fuses with the ovule to form the zygote. We have the male reproductive unit of the flower. We can see the anthers attached to the filament. These anthers gets easily attached to the stigma by self-pollination method. In the next video, let's study about the male gametophyte, focusing on the internal structure of anther. Until then, happy learning from Edge to all.